Good afternoon. I will call the Wisconsin Rapids Planning Commission meeting to order on Monday, September 11th, 2017. I'm Chairperson Mayor Zach Fruling. Fran will go around and do introductions.
Fran Aaron, Commission Member.
Todd Furkey, City Alderman.
Shane Burkhart, Commission Member.
Lee Tao, Commission Member. Andy Dunkey, Alliance Development.
Joe Terry, Secretary.
Adam Tagan, Community Development Director.
Cal Schultz, Keystone Development.
Thank you all for being here. Item 1, approval of the report from the August 22nd, 2017 Planning Commission meeting. Commissioners, what are your wishes on that item?
Make a motion to approve.
A motion by Furkey, is there a second? Second by Aaron. Any additions or corrections to the report? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Item 2, Plan 170670, Cranberry Woods, Wisconsin Rapids LLC. The applicant is requesting a site plan approval to allow a 40-unit townhouse development within the R3 multifamily residential district. The subject property is located at the northwest corner of 16th Street South and Pepper Avenue. Andy's here, or Adam, do we want to, we'll defer to you, Adam, first, and then we'll defer to Andy.
Just a very quick background, you guys might recognize the name of the developer. They had actually approached the city and with a proposal to purchase 8 acres over 25th Avenue South. There was some opposition to that request, so they ultimately looked elsewhere in the city. The city does own southeast portion of the property that they're now proposing to put their development on. So the city did agree to sell that to them as part of the development agreement, subject to similar conditions that were proposed when it was located out off 25th Avenue. The property was already zoned R3, so that's why they didn't have to come through this board, similar to how they had to over at 25th Avenue. And within the R3 district, basically you just need a site plan approval in order to build a multifamily type of product. And basically site plan approval is really to look at the layout of it, aesthetics of it, screening, landscaping, that type of thing. It's not is multifamily appropriate, that's already established by the zoning. So it's more of a technical review versus a legislative review. So I did provide an overview of the project, kind of highlighted things as far as it meeting code and our understanding of what was talked about at the city council when the property was being considered for sale. Staff was of the opinion that it met those. Again, it'll be that higher quality construction that we were looking for on 25th Avenue with higher quality exterior standards, higher finishes on the inside, landscaping, all those things. They go above and beyond what our standard code would require. I did kind of try and compare it to our new zoning code as well, and quite honestly this would fit right into our new zoning code as well. So it is at a level of quality that we're trying to establish moving forward as well. So overall, planning staff did recommend approval subject to, sorry I gave away my packet, 8 conditions of approval. And obviously Andy and Cal are here, and there's a full set of plans. If you couldn't identify anything in the 11 by 17s, I apologize, it gets a little busy, but we do have the full set, and then there are digital on the Mondo pad as well. But with that, I would answer any questions or hand it over to the developers.
Any questions for Adam before we can let Andy speak?
Where's access going to be? There'll be multiple accesses?
We looked at the site plan, Andy maybe want to walk right through it. It's right on the screen there.
I'm sorry.
So what we're showing here is 4 different buildings with access coming off of 16th Street, and then again access off of 14th. With fire truck access for both of them. And we're proposing 4 different buildings. This front building here is a 14-unit. This one's a 6-unit. This is a 4-unit with a clubhouse, so that's where we'll have our manager's office and workout facility and a little deck off the back with some concrete and a children's play area. And then the rear building on the back rear yard is a 16-unit as well. Dumpsters are located in 2 different locations. One right here and one right here. Whoop, I don't know what I did there.
Yeah, that's just the touch screen. If you hit page back, it should, or page down, page up, it should get you back.
Oh, it's the landscape plan. We could probably get back there.
And I think that's okay too.
Okay.
Wherever.
That's
And then the elevations, I don't know if anybody has any questions on the site plan itself.
We may have some, but we can go to elevations if you'd like.
So there's a couple different elevations depending upon if you're street side or not. Like this elevation here is the 16 unit. And so that's kind of the front of this building.
Changed on you. I'm gonna go back one more. Is that the building A? No, okay. Sorry, I moved on
Okay.
you before you look down.
So these are the fronts when they're not fronting on one of the streets like 16th or Street or Pepper. This would be where you pull into your garage and this is your front door. So that's the facade, and then this is the back facade of these. And then if we just click to
So, one more? Or I guess
Yeah.
you've got them.
There you go.
So when we are out on then one of the main streets, Pepper Street, so these are the front facades, and there'll be a sidewalk connecting from the city sidewalk to the front door.
Just
On
zoom in
16th
for
Street?
you.
Did I just do that again?
No, I zoomed it in so
Okay.
you could see where
Is
you.
that on 16th Street you're talking about?
That's on 16th and Pepper, so the two buildings that are actually on,
Facing the street.
facing the street.
I think you got
Yeah.
it just far right, you can grab this scroll bar right on the edge of the screen and slide it down.
Okay. Oh, there it is.
This was supposed to be.
I guess
That's
not.
on page.
User
No.
This is the clubhouse entrance there, you see that?
Okay. I won't try to zoom, that was really messing us up. It's like, so we can go back to any view you wanna go back to. All right, so building A is that's the building that's fronts off of, kind of behind the existing YMCA.
Right. Tried to keep the garages on the interior drives
Mhm.
with the individual entrances facing out to the street.
Building A. Building B being the clubhouse that you talked about.
Yep. So this would be the entrance to the clubhouse right here.
And that faces 16th Street, or it faces east, I should say.
That's correct, yes. So we've got a couple of handicap parking stalls there, and then also with the sidewalk that goes from right here into this entrance. And then this is the front facade we're talking about that faces the main streets, and then again with the garages in the back. But this is the real townhouse kind of look to it, where it actually protrudes out a little bit, and they look really nice.
So any recreational area, or that'll all be for children behind the clubhouse deal there?
Yep.
Is there any patio type area where if a person wants a grill or something like that?
There's
There's a patio.
Yep, off the clubhouse, there's a patio. That-
Okay,
and
but
we-
not for each individual unit?
No, not for
Okay.
each individual unit. Cement board siding, usually doctored up with some color. We've done a couple different things, depending upon how big the projects are, but one of them we did, which I may have showed you pictures of. We could change this up and do different buildings, different colors. You know, some could be red, some could be blue or a green. Right now, we're proposing them red, but we're open to suggestions if,
On the garages, the end garages are gabled and then the ones interior are sloped out? Is that?
Oh, you're saying
So
the two
it's-
ends of the building?
like right here.
Yeah, kind of
Yeah,
the
that's
difference
just-
between those two?
Basically for window purposes.
Yeah, and then we have them up here.
The gables up there?
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay, that'll look really nice.
ultimately it creates, so it's not just a flat front.
Yeah,
Right.
we're trying to break up the roof
Yep.
lines and,
Yep.
and that's what, you know, these are all different roof lines, so.
As far as coloring, you know, you were talking about having different buildings, different color. I see like the Swiderski development in Plover. I mean, that looks like about 50 different units, and I don't know if there's any mixture of color in them. They all look pretty much the same to me.
Off of Plover Road, yeah.
Yeah.
My personal preferences usually have these, every building has a different color, so that, I mean, this isn't as overwhelming as like a Swiderski where every building looks exactly the same, it's
Yeah.
the same size, and you can actually get lost in it. But it usually helps break it up a little bit, just so you kind of.
They all have individual furnaces?
Yep.
Each one has their own, huh?
Yep, and central air.
Yeah, I see that, yeah.
I mean, we can do it, I don't think you have a preference, right? We can send you pictures of our Nicolay one, the different colors we use there. You can-
I think we use 4 colors there.
Yep. We can decide that down the road, whenever, you know, but we're completely open to.
Personally, I really like that design. I think it looks
I do too.
really sharp.
It looks nice.
Then our 2 bedrooms are a bath and a half, and 3 bedrooms are two bath.
I guess a question or a thought, and I'm not sure how it's answered, but for example, on this building D, which faces, the rear faces Pepper Ave, you know, in terms of aesthetics and just trying to, you know, given that these are multifamily units, without a patio or anything, I can kind of expect that we're gonna have outdoor chair, maybe you guys have different experiences and help me, and share those if you do. Outdoor seating on the lawn and you know, individual grills and not really a place for those kinds of things, so maybe you can share how that looks. So you've got some landscaping in between the sidewalks that kind of take it out to the sidewalk, to the main walk, I guess. Maybe you're driving at some of that, Todd, in terms of where the.
Well, I'm just thinking if, you know, if there was in fact an area individually, what you're talking about there, you know, and I can't see to scale what that sidewalk length is, but it doesn't look like much more than 20
But
feet.
what we find with grills, they're pulling them out of their garage, because everybody has their own garage. So
Okay.
typically, we see them pull that into their driveway for grilling.
Okay.
Our preference is that they go to the community grill, but that obviously isn't going to always happen.
Sure.
But yeah, as far as grills go, that's typically what they do.
Okay.
And it's on us as, you know, managing the property to make sure people aren't leaving junky looking rusty grills laying around, that they're either in their garage or they look nice, you know.
You do raise a good point about the garage, and I think that probably staves off a lot of the storage space for people when there's concerns about where things are being stored. Or our experience with existing like properties throughout the city that don't have the garages on, you know, so close to the unit. I think that makes a big difference in
Yep.
where the kids' toys are
Seems
stored.
to be bicycles and everything, yeah, so
Yeah.
it's easier to manage that.
Do those, the garage facing exits, or the, you know, the exits on the garage side or the interior part of the building, do those protrude out?
There is a little spot in there that you could put a, kind of like a pad.
Well, I'm just,
Like right here? Is that what you're
well,
saying?
the doors themselves, is the exits out off?
Do the
building?
garage come off the building? Is that?
Yeah, well, I see the opening there. Okay, so the garages actually stick out.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep,
there
yep.
we go, they're not just,
So sometimes people will put a little chair or something in here too.
oh, yeah.
So is there access from the house into the garage?
Yes.
Yes, yep.
And so that's really a third,
Well, on these, it's a second, because on.
because there's no passageway
Yeah.
out of the garage except for the doors. Okay,
Correct, yep. This would be like this unit, and then there's nothing out the back.
okay. Oh, okay, I see.
I can flip Todd
Sure.
or anybody else to another page in there if you're looking for.
Yeah, the floor
The
plan
garage
shows
doors all
that
have
both.
openers on, so we don't get the lazy tenant that always leaves their garage open.
Right.
Um,
That probably shows that a little bit better for you.
And they're all at least two-stall garages, and then you have additional parking, it looks like interior,
Each unit comes with a single stall garage
single stall.
and a stacked parking behind it in addition to surface parking. I forget how many we have.
What's required is 60 stalls, and we are providing 103.
On your floor plan, what's the meaning of the shaded?
Those are either, that's what we call a WIDA unit. It's got additional accessibility.
Okay,
So it's either an ADA or,
okay.
Concerned about visibility of parking and. I'm not sure. Joe, what's there for overhead utilities along the west side of 16th through the north side of Pepper? Let's take a look. I can't remember, I think utilities were on the south side of Pepper. I'm just thinking about potentially including some density of boulevard trees. So behind the walk, behind the curb, but before the walk. I know you've got a number of plantings and trees that sort of conform to code. But in terms of additional screening.
If that's overhead or anything.
We have overhead running down 16th Street,
On the east or the west? The west side?
west side of 16th Street.
Okay.
You can see it on C 1.4.
We will also have overhead running down the north side of Pepper. And then it transitions to underground on the east side of 14th.
So you likely have utility conflict with them, boulevard trees.
Okay.
Nice looking deal.
thank you.
If you're gonna do that, you have to specify some logo or something. Like a lilac or a, a Japanese lilac or something that's,
Which they've already got some of the planting
Right.
plan, which was on page 1.3, 1.5. So that's
C1.5.
yeah. And you've got some larger trees, I think, the lindens, right, those are the three on that one side. Okay.
So you've got hydrangeas.
I have no idea what they look like, so I don't know.
You're planning to break ground in October, is that right?
That'd be our goal, yep, this fall for sure. We're gonna get in before frost and get all of our site work done.
Other questions, comments, concerns from anybody?
The distance between the front of the garage and the push out there, is there room for people to leave their car parked in front of the garage, or?
Yes.
There is, okay. So there's passageway clearance to
Yep.
traverse the parking, okay.
Yeah, otherwise they would not qualify as a parking space under our code, so they do have
Okay.
to be that depth to qualify as a
Okay.
qualified parking.
Okay. That looks real good.
Entertain a motion, commissioners.
Motion to approve?
I would.
I certainly will make that motion.
And I've got a motion to approve, I assume with the 8 conditions that are proposed by staff. Is there a second? Second. Got a motion and a second. Motion by Aaron, second by Burkhart. Any further discussion from anybody? When do you expect occupancy to occur, at least in the first buildings? I think you had said originally there were a couple.
Yeah, I think probably by June 1, once we can get asphalt in,
Okay.
depending on when the plant's open.
Yeah, right. Any other comments, questions from anybody? Seeing no further discussion, moving to vote, all in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. So check if you wouldn't mind tomorrow with Sue, city attorney, and
Yep.
we'll.
I'll just shoot her an email tonight, say that we talked about that dollar amount, and then, do we need to be at that finance meeting, or is it?
I wouldn't, I mean, at this point, the questions from council members have been, I think, as far as I'm concerned, answered. I don't think there's really anything else out there. No.
Yeah, it's more just a legal document to button it all up, sure. Okay.
Yeah, I think we had a good representation of council members at that meeting as well, so I wouldn't expect any concern.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen.
guys.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Item 3, discussion on the Soul Smart program and potential recommendations to update city regulations as it pertain to solar energy systems.
Well, I don't know how excited everybody is about solar power, but one of the initiatives that kind of spun off of the mayor's sustainability council is making sure that Wisconsin Rapids is solar friendly, meaning that our regulations don't put up unnecessary, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Barriers to implementing solar power on the residential or commercial scale. So to that end, we actually applied for a Soul Smart designation. It's a program that's supported by the Department of Energy. And as part of that, we actually signed on with Midwest Renewable Energy Association, MREA, to act as our advisors, to kind of shepherd us through the system. So they're helping us out by doing a review of our local codes as they currently sit, making recommendations on amendments to our current codes, and then I've also connected them with our consultant as we adopt the new zoning code, so that that language is also friendly. Right now, our codes they're fairly supportive of solar power. However, they're older. They haven't really been updated, so they don't contain a lot of definitions. It's not as clear as it could be. It leaves it up, I guess, a little bit more to interpretation than probably you would want, depending on who sits in my chair. If it's someone who wants to have more regulations, there's the ability to kind of make them jump through more hoops. Or if you're a little more laid back, you can basically say it's not specifically addressed. It makes it easier. So what this, basically the review is saying is we should add those type of things. We should have clear procedures. We should have basically a one-page worksheet that says if you're gonna put in a solar powered system, here's what you do. Who do you have to work with at Water and Light, for example? What steps do they need for connecting into their system, the metering, all that type of thing. So really, this is just a way to bring it forward, see if the commission is supportive of that. If so, what I would be doing is drafting up a formal amendment, bringing it back to you. Because of a kind of an odd timing thing, in order for us to gain our Soul Smart designation yet this year, we would have to actually amend our current code because the new code won't be fully adopted in time. So we'd be adopting a code that would be in effect for probably 3 to 6 months before a new code would be adopted.
If the people that are writing the new codes and stuff, are they aware of all this?
Yep. Yeah, I've kept our Civitech consultants involved so that they're making sure that the new code is fully drafted. So when that gets adopted, it'll match what we would probably be doing in our current code. So really what I'd be proposing is basically take our alternative energy ordinance, which is kind of broad, and it covers wind power, solar power, and really trying to make it more specific to solar. And then we have a separate section that deals with wind energy already that was updated in 2009, I believe it is. So that particular section is good. Our solar section is just out of date. So again, but I didn't want to bring forth something without knowing whether or not the commission was supportive of cleaning that up and being a solar friendly. Maybe, I guess, I don't want to assume that the commission wants to support solar power systems. I think I can probably guess, Todd, because you just
Yeah.
recently had
Yeah.
someone pull a permit to install solar at your property. I'm actually going through the process right now myself as well. But just kind of putting it out there for discussion and direction from the commission.
So a lot of the friendliness actually comes from power and light, right?
Correct.
As far as making it attractive for the consumer to actually install a system.
Right.
Financially, yes, definitely.
Well, and its value after it's installed, right? So when your power generated or power produced, electricity produced is returned on a one-on-one basis, that makes it quite attractive when it's other power companies, when you get to a certain point, that drops off to like only 25% of the power produced. So again, its value now in the city with water and light is very attractive, especially when you get the other incentives with say a focus on energy or some type of tax breaks or whatever. So whatever the city can do to continue to make this attractive to the residents, I'm all for. I don't know if you're getting more into the actual construction and placement of maybe surface-based units, or what you're actually driving for here.
Yeah, and a lot of that, there are some state laws that
Mhm.
basically say you have to allow solar access.
Mhm.
A local municipality can't overregulate and basically say, make it to a point where a typical homeowner can't install a solar system.
Mhm.
So you can have some general requirements. Obviously, you don't want to put it in a situation that would negatively impact the neighbor. But really, for the most part, what I would be bringing forward is more just making sure we have a clear procedure process, what type of permitting is necessary, what type of credentialing, basically cleaning all that up so it's very clear to a homeowner that this is the process to move through. So it's really just trying to streamline the process as opposed to putting in specific regulations that say you have to be, I mean, we would address some things like setbacks. So
Mhm.
do you treat it as an accessory building, basically? So the same setback requirements that you would have for a detached shed is kind of the standard that seems to be there. So you would get into some of that, but not that a ground mount system can't exceed a certain height. You don't really get into necessarily that level of detail at this point, at least unless the commission really wants to go that way.
I'd say that I think it's absolutely wonderful. My concerns as a professional engineer is attachment to the structure and additional loading on the structure, and making sure that those things are taken care of. Because not only, if it's one that is held up away, then we get into snow drifting, which most of these structures weren't designed for snow drifting and stuff like that. So there are things that need to be considered when you go and add extra rooftop equipment from when the structure was originally designed. And that's really hard to deal with on residential structures, but they're probably the one of the most concerns because they have the least regulation on it. So I don't have a solution for that. I'm throwing that out there for us to think about, that it is a big concern.
Yeah, and I can do some additional research just
Yeah.
to see if there is a standard, really.
Yeah.
Obviously, you would, as an engineer, would run circles around anything I could come up with as a planner, but if there is a standard,
I'm just
seems
thinking
to be the norm.
of things that, so
Yeah.
that if we're encouraging it, that we're at least encouraging safe attachment and knowing that you're not gonna have structural collapses because they're collecting a whole bunch of snow up there
Right.
behind them.
I also wonder if, when we're considering setbacks, if it's similar to, accessory structures, if there's potentially a conditional use opportunity if for some reason, a structure-mounted system or a backyard system isn't feasible, it isn't possible for whatever reason, that there be some consideration whether it would be appropriate or not in the front yards.
Gotcha.
Whether in those situations, if there should be some height, some things like that. So, perhaps conditional use might be appropriate there and some suggested conditions to avoid, kind of detracting from the aesthetics, the curb appeal of the home. What that is at this point,
Are these all
wouldn't know.
things that I'm sure that the code people are gonna write up?
Well, what we're looking at right now, right, is having to address some of these in order to qualify for this program timely.
I see.
If I understand correctly, we need to address these with our current ordinance
Okay.
and include them in our future ordinance.
Okay.
But again, the reason we have an advisor, the Midwest Renewable Energy Association, is that they would aid with drafting that language. So it wouldn't be, again, 100% on me. I'm not a solar expert by any stretch, so having people who deal with it, who have dealt with multiple municipalities and have that track record to kind of present that information. So,
Again, done properly, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't wanna do this. I mean, this
I would
makes
agree.
sense.
It's absolutely wonderful, yeah.
Apparently, they've come a long way with the equipment, because in years past, it was not even feasible, economically feasible to do it. We put them on the Hotel Mead when that last edition was put on in late '70s, I guess it was. We finally ended up taking them down, they just, it just didn't work out.
Interesting. Well, I think you make a good point about the ground mounts, that, a lot of properties, I did a solar survey at my property, and there was a certain amount that was allowed, or that would work, but I'd have to put a ground mount in, and the only place to do it would be in the front yard. And
right.
Probably wouldn't do that, so.
But there may be,
it's a-
there may be situations where at certain heights,
Yeah,
that it wouldn't necessarily detract from the house.
Sure.
It might act similar to a shade structure on a deck, or, something. I don't know what the answer is, but, there may be some conditions that could be applied to, allow that situation to exist when you don't have anywhere else where it could be functional and still maintain some of the aesthetic character of the neighborhood.
I can't imagine how you could hide them in the front yard to make it look good.
no, unless it, there was a unique circumstance, or you
Yep.
had a large
Well,
property, right?
there's that
Yeah.
Certain height,
Double
There's
lot
that
maybe
one
or
on
something, but.
Yeah.
Second Avenue.
right.
That one has it in the front yard. It still looks good.
And that's fairly low. I mean,
Yeah.
if potentially if they were a little higher,
Heading down
I don't know.
by the river?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Is that their front yard or is that their backyard?
That's the
That's
front
the
yard.
front
They're
yard.
technically
Okay.
addressed off of Second Avenue.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Their access is not off of Second Avenue,
Okay.
so it.
Yeah, I never knew if that
it's
was
their
their
front
front
yard,
or
but
their
it's not their
backyard.
front yard. But, and there are some, there's the funkier styles to it. We've driven by Northeastern Technical College in Green Bay. They've got ones that look like flowers. It's a certain triangle
Yeah.
shape, so it's more decorative.
That's true.
Cost-wise and practical-wise, it doesn't work for a typical residential homeowner, for example. But, so there, obviously, as the technology continues to develop, there'll be more options. But
Is there a charge for partnering with this Midwest? No?
there's no charge to the city for
They
that.
sought communities that were willing to kind of go through the program to have the coach, and that was the perk, was there wasn't a cost to do it. I guess I had a question, how are they currently permitted?
Right now, they're outright permitted.
Just-
As long as, basically, they, ground-mounted is where it gets really kind of easy. It's not clear
I was
what
wondering how
to
that
enforce.
system on Second Avenue got permitted, or some of the other.
Yeah, that one, ultimately, that one actually, I believe, went through a conditional use.
Okay.
Because it was in a front yard, and
Okay.
so, at that time, the plan commission, there's a document that was adopted by the plan commission back in 80s or 90s, I think it is, that kind of outlines that roof mounted are allowed, ground mounted are allowed with certain, but it's out of date and just not as user friendly as it could be. So for example, mine's a roof mounted system, so it's basically just you get an electrical and a building permit and you work with the utility for the connection and you're good to go. And I think Todd's was very simple.
Yep.
I don't remember if yours is roof or.
Yes, it is. And when you were talking about snow loads and stuff like that, from what I gathered, and one of my installers was an engineer also, that if you stay at the same pitch, follow the pitch of the roof, the snow load and the stress on the roof, I guess, is very minimal. And they're light.
They can be, but if you have them where your roof is at not right and you're starting to pitch them up to get the angle.
Wind load issues and drifting.
Yeah, and it's just those type of things that I just don't wanna
Sure.
have overlooked in a situation and then have an issue.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if there is many applications where the pitch does vary on the roof-mounted units. I know the surface-mounted units where you can vary the pitch depending on the season to get better effectiveness, is certainly available, but those roof-mounted ones I thought were pretty static.
Otherwise you have to get custom racking and the cost, again, goes up so quickly that it, again, is to undermine the financial, at least when I ask the question, because ours don't face so. We had that question when we were looking at it.
Very good. Well, I'm hearing a general consensus, the commission is supportive. I don't think we need to take any action on that.
Okay.
So I will then bring it back, I would assume next month for consideration.
Good. Make a
All
motion
right.
to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned.